Hi, today I'm here to talk about the controversial topic of caffeine in sports and whether or not caffeine is performance enhancing and whether that is safe or okay, and views of different athletic organizations on caffeine and what the restrictions currently are and what I believe they should be. So, to start out, I want to share what a couple of medical papers have to say about the positive and the negative effects of caffeine. So there is an article in the American Journal of Sports Medicine that is investigating caffeine and exercise performance. And this article finds that caffeine does, in fact, enhance performance in exercise. And caffeine does this with increased myofilament affinity for calcium or increased release of calcium from the sacroplasmic reticulum and skeletal muscle. Cellular actions caused by accumulation of cyclic 3'5' adenosine monophosphate in various tissues, including the skeletal muscle and adipocytes. And the cellular actions are mediated by competitive inhibition of adenosine receptors in the central nervous system. And so basically all that means is the caffeine in your body is doing something that is going to enhance your performance and block that feeling of pain so that you're able to perform at a higher level. Additionally, an article was found in the Canadian Journal of Applied Physiology, which basically agrees with everything from the American Journal of Medicine. And it says that caffeine will increase endurance and speed, but not your maximal VO2 and related parameters. And so, again, this article is saying that caffeine, yes, it is a performance enhancer, and you are going to get that added benefit from consuming caffeine and taking part in your sports. The final article that I have that supports the performance enhancing hypothesis is again from the American Journal of Sports Medicine. And it talks about how, caffeine is a stimulant. And so that stimulant is going to block the receptors in your brain that feel pain and that are sensitive to pain. And so that is why the caffeine is going to give you that little extra boost. And so again, it's just supporting the fact that, yeah, caffeine is performance enhancing. And I found another article, and it's showing a negative side of caffeine. It's from the Journal of Hypertension, and it's talking about how caffeine will, surprise, increase blood pressure. And I'm sure we've all had that feeling when we've had a little bit too much caffeine, and before an exam, we're sitting in that exam tapping our pencil, and our blood pressure is through the roof, and we just feel like a tremendous amount of stress. And this is a negative effect because with increased blood pressure, especially in sports, if you have a high blood pressure and your arteries are already wide open because you're exercising, and so they're going to dilate, that can cause huge heart issues. Can lead to a heart attack. It can lead to all sorts of really negative effects of caffeine. And so that's why it gets really dangerous when you mix caffeine and sports and exercise and all of that. So two organizations that have a lot to say on caffeine in sports are the NCAA and WADA. The NCAA is the National Collegiate Athletic Association, and WADA is the World Anti-Doping Association. And so these are the two governing bodies in sport that kind of determine what is and isn't okay. And so the NCAA has a couple things to say about caffeine. And so the NCAA, where they stand with caffeine is that you can consume it. You can have a couple cups of coffee a day, but they put a cap on it. And so they say that caffeine is a banned substance if the urinary caffeine concentration exceeds 15 micrograms per milliliter. So that corresponds to ingesting about 500 milligrams, which is the equivalent of 6 to 8 cups of brewed coffee 2 to 3 hours before competition. So that is where the NCAA stands, and WADA actually stands at the same place. So the NCAA says that the benefits of caffeine are decreased pain and perception of fatigue. So you can obviously train at higher intensities and have harder practices and race better. You have decreased perceived exertion during a submaximal resistance training. So you're basically able to train more intense for longer. So it does give you that advantage. But again, you have to remember, if you're going to consume the caffeine, you have to be below the 6 to 8 cups of coffee, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think that that should be hard to stay below at all, but you have to stay below it. Otherwise, it's performance enhancing. And it improves your endurance and sustained high intensity training. and it also focuses on improving your body coordination. So that would help in a sport like basketball or soccer or football or something that involves high coordination because you're more focused on what's going on, and so it can help to improve that. But the NCAA also says that some caffeine drinks and energy drinks, they might not actually clearly label the caffeine. So a negative benefit would be you don't actually know how much caffeine you're ingesting. So make sure that you know what you're putting in your body and how much of it you're putting in your body before you put it in your body. That would be the smart thing to do. Additionally, caffeine is a drug. It is a stimulant, and it has addictive properties. And so by ingesting the caffeine, you are making your body more and more addicted. And I know I'm guilty of this because if I don't have my cup of coffee early in the morning, I have a headache by about 3 p.m. So totally get what they're saying about that. And additionally, if you consume caffeine without drinking water, then you're dehydrating yourself, and no athlete needs to be dehydrated. That is not going to be performance enhancing at all. That will de-enhance your performance. And again, WADA says the same thing. They say that caffeine is a permitted drug, but again, they're monitored. And so it kind of depends on the amount that you're consuming and how much your body is willing to handle based on your body type, because everyone's bodies process caffeine differently. And so I do agree with what WADA and the NCAA say. My opinion on caffeine consumption in athletics is that it is okay. I think that a couple cups of coffee a day, that's great. It's relaxing. It gets your day started. You get out of bed. You feel good. But I do think that it can be incredibly dangerous if it's consumed the wrong way. And it can lead to several negative effects, such as heart attacks and addictive properties and dehydration that you definitely don't want in your life, especially as an athlete. And so I think that we need to continue to do research and look at the science behind the effects of caffeine to figure out exactly what that safe amount of caffeine is that we are able to consume without negatively impacting our bodies. I don't think there needs to be a rule of no caffeine consumption, but I do think that we need to continue to put money into researching that amount that is safe for athletes to consume. And that is my opinion on caffeine consumption in athletes.